So my name is Maelis. I'm the managing director of the Catalyst Fund. Catalyst is a global fintech accelerator for early stage entrepreneurs across emerging markets. And to date, we've backed 61 companies, but 70% of our portfolio is here in Africa. Historically, we focused on fintech, but as of late, I'm sure you're aware, fintech, everyone is a fintech. It's really been integrated across a lot of impact sectors. And we specifically have been exploring the role that fintech plays in building resilience of vulnerable communities, especially in the face of climate risks. And today I'm very excited because we just announced yesterday our 10th cohort of companies that includes these wonderful entrepreneurs here on stage. And so today it's all about them and actually talking about how their solutions are improving the resilience of climate vulnerable communities here in Kenya. So I'm going to actually turn to them for a very brief introduction, and then we'll jump right into the discussion for today. So Emilie, if you want to start, maybe just a problem statement, what the solution is doing, and the impact you're trying to have.
Sure. And yeah, so my name is Emilie. I'm the COO of TopUp Mama. We are on a mission to increase restaurants' contribution to Africa's GDP. Basically, what the problem is that the restaurant segment in the continent is super fragmented. Here on the continent, about less than 1% of restaurants are part of a chain. Compare that to the US, where it's more than 50%. What that means is that these are all individual business owners that don't have the scale to get operational efficiencies, get marketing efficiencies, build buffers for any sort of unforeseen circumstances. So we are here to help them grow and to help these restaurant owners actually increase their profits and grow on the continent. The first problem we're tackling is supply chain. So we're aggregating their demand and make sure that they get all the products that they need on a day-to-day basis, be it meat, fish, tomatoes, delivery packaging, cooking oil, all of those products. But there's much more that we can do. So we've also launched an embedded credit product so that they can actually increase their working capital. And we're also looking at combining all of them and unifying them under one brand so that we actually really help them grow a lot. I'll get back to that later.
Amazing. Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Maelis. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Muriu. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tulix. So our business is primarily targeting the remittance market. We've all seen the news how much people are sending back home to support their families. And in times like today when pandemics are striking us and there's a lot of income that are affected, we feel we're very relevant. So we're tackling a main problem, which is reducing the cost and complexity that African migrants abroad face when they're trying to transact back home. Typical example would be most cases you'd have to send money from anywhere in the world here to Kenya. You need a beneficiary like myself to make that transaction happen. So there are many ways to do this through so many different companies, but we're tackling the direct payment route where when there's a need that needs to be solved, the person living abroad or the person who's supporting these families can do it directly at a very good rate or a very convenient means. And the Tulix app is built for exactly that. And I'll highlight the main impact we want to realize through our product is basically unlocking the potential of remittances in the continent. And this is true because we know that the figure is roughly $85 to $90 billion reported, but the African Union actually estimates it could be double this, and primarily because there's too many informal channels that are limiting how far these funds can be put to use. So really looking forward to the discussion with everyone here.
I'm sure you have probably a lot of customers in this room already. So
I believe so.
Yeah. Dave.
Thank you very much. My name is Okech. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aquarech Limited. Aquarech will provide a platform to small and medium-sized small fish farmers that enables them to access high-quality and affordable feeds, access tools to efficiently manage their farm, and connect the produced fish to a market in a way that is efficient and transparent. We do this by the use of a mobile app technology which has an inbuilt e-commerce platform where farmers buy their high-quality feeds at the comfort of their farm. We have integrated IoT as a technology to assist farmers practice what is called precision fish feeding, which is key towards reducing cost of production and tackling pollution that would otherwise occur to the next because when farmers feed without use of precise feeding technique. Thank you.
Great, and we're going to get into the details of that because there's a lot to unpack in Aquarech's model. So before we dive in, you might be wondering, you guys are fintech investors, like what does fintech for climate mean? And so, as I was saying earlier, for us, like we recognize that climate risks are going to have expansive effects in the resilience of households and small businesses across the continent. And so it really behoves us to think about how we're making these solutions more affordable, more accessible to those vulnerable communities. And what's the role of fintech in that? And how do we think systemically about, even just starting with our portfolio, about the impacts that climate change will have, and integrate that lens into our investing. So one thing, as you heard, that all of them have in common is that they're serving micro businesses, households, or aquaculture farmers, who all are going to bear the brunt of climate risks and are also the least prepared to cope. And guess what? Also, the African continent is the one that was the least contributor to the crisis. So really, as investors, I think there's a responsibility to integrate this lens across what we do. So maybe we start with you, Emilie. Like when you think about, for example, price fluctuations and the impact of climate risks across your supply chain, we've seen in Kenya in recent days the hashtag lower food prices trending on Twitter. Like, how do you think about that as a problem to solve through TopUp Mama, and what are you doing about it?
We do need to see that these small business owners are very sensitive to anything happening, like any unexpected events. Whether that is a family event, like a health event in a family, having to pay school fees, things like that, that can immediately impact their ability to run the business and to buy stock, buy the products they need. It can also be macro events, right? COVID, I don't think I have to explain how difficult and hard COVID has been on the restaurant sector across the world, but specifically here on the continent. And climate risk is just one of those events. So it's another thing added to a long list of things that small business owners struggle with. And just as a very concrete example, the price of maize has gone up by more than 30% just this year alone. So in the last month and a half, it's gone up by 30% due to a drought in Kenya like late last year. Yeah. And maize is a staple food, right? Everybody needs it in their restaurant. So these sort of events are going to continue happening, and they're going to happen more and more often, right? So it's not going to go away. And so what we do in the short term is like we try to build this consistency in pricing and availability. We can do part of that with cold storage to keep products longer, things like that. But the bigger change we can make is on the longer term, when we've actually aggregated all these different restaurants, all their demand. We actually have much more buying power, much more, many more possibilities to stabilize food availability, and in that way also stabilize those prices.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that point about aggregation of demand is critical, because cold storage solutions are not cheap, right? So how are you thinking about your franchise model as an enabler for small businesses to basically access solutions at a lower cost?
So as a franchise or as just a customer on our platform, you can get your products every single day. Like a lot of these restaurants, they don't have fridges or freezers or no access to consistent electricity. And if they can get it every day, we can keep the products cold and get it to them when they need it, instead of them having to buy it up front, running the risk of things rotting or going bad in other ways.
Yeah. Right. What's the average time that produce is now staying in your fridges?
So it depends a bit. We have a couple of things that can be frozen, so that can stay for a couple months. Fresh produce, I mean, depends on the product itself. Some things can stay for 2-3 days, others like 4 or 5. but at least if you keep it under good circumstances, it can stay that amount of days instead of 1 day.
That's great. That's really important and powerful. And actually links to, I think, Dave, what you were saying, because for the aquaculture farmers, access to markets and also lower prices of inputs for productions is really critical. So can you tell us a bit more about the challenges that you've seen the farmers you serve experiencing and what you're doing about solving that?
Yeah, I think we all agree that smallholder farmers in Africa hold key to food and nutrition security. And one of the challenges that smallholder farmers face is the unit cost of production, and especially with reference to aquaculture, fish farmers. The unit cost of production has gone high over a period of time, and which has not been commensurate with the selling price of fish that is in the market, or that has sustained itself for a period of time. And some of the challenges that these farmers face are the lack of access to the high quality and affordable feeds that have better feed conversion ratio, meaning the feeds they are using currently is highly sinking mash, and that has an impact on the cost because the FCR is very low, and the time period to produce the fish is also 13 months, some cases 16 months. Coupled with lack of access to credit financing scheme or a financial instrument that smallholder farmers can access in order to be able to remain productive during the entire period that they are producing fish. And also, I would say, fluctuation in water temperature, which is caused again by changes in climatic conditions, is directly impacting aquaculture because production of fish has a lot to do with water temperature. So how do farmers respond to those challenges that include climatic conditions in order for them to remain more resilient and produce the adequate fish that we need to supply in the society, for the society to remain productive? Kenya currently is consuming 4.5 kilograms of fish per capita, whereas we should be consuming at least 19 kilograms of fish per capita. And that gap is widening if we don't address and tackle some of the challenges that smallholder fish farmers are facing. As Aquarech, we are tackling these challenges by enabling smallholder farmers to access these high quality and affordable feeds with better feed conversion ratio that has only been a preserve of the large scale farmers, but now through our intervention at the click of a button they are able to access that. And one of the things we are seeing from the data of the farmers we are working is they have been able to reduce their production period from 13 months to 8 months. The quality of fish that they have realized as a result of that feed is better tasting and draws more price in the market. And what that also translates is increase in productivity and additional income to the farmer. Those are some of the interventions that we have put in place.
That's amazing. And honestly, like if you haven't yet, we all have to learn more about Aquarech because the numbers are incredible. And actually yesterday you mentioned a few. Like what is the percentage of feed in the ponds that drowns and therefore reduces sort of overall feeding precision and productivity?
So farmers who are using sinking mash feed are actually losing up to 30% of the feed that settles at the bottom of the lake or at the bottom of the pond that is uneaten by the fish, because most of them are going tilapia, and tilapia is a top feeder. Further to that, they are also going through 13 to 16 months of production period. What we are changing the narrative is by providing floating feeds that are floating throughout and incorporating what you call precision fish feeding. A farmer is able to save a lot of cost, up to 30% of the cost that is incurring, and is able to reduce significantly by almost 5 months the production period. What is transforming the sector is you have an almost 50% improvement in productivity of a smallholder farmer.
That's wild, 50% productivity improvement. And what about the additional income because of the higher quality of fishes that is sold? Like, what was that number again?
Yeah, the additional income is at 18% that the farmer will draw by getting the right quality fish. Right quality fish is fish that has more meat than bones. Skinny fish that they produce with sinking mash has more bones than meat, and if they take them to the market, they are often associated with imported fish or fish that is not safe for people. Yeah? So what you realize with the quality grade of fish is that it has more meat than bones, and then it attracts up to 20 shillings higher price than a skinny fish that has been produced over a period of 13 months with low quality feed.
And how are you leveraging technology? So you have a very, very cool partnership with Google actually in the works. So what's the role of technology in all this?
Yeah, so we were lucky to be part of Google Black Founders Fund last year, and we are now collaborating with Google to develop AI technology that is going to assist smallholder farmers in tackling predators that exist in the ponds and cages, and two, support in precision fish feeding by giving us up to 95% accuracy in terms of estimated number of fish in a pool of a pond or a cage, and also estimating with a high precision the average size of fish. Once you get a precise or a very accurate amount of fish you have in the pond, the average size of that fish, and coupled with our already existing IoT infrastructure, which is giving us the water temperature at the moment, the intervention will be very key in terms of boosting productivity because it will further perfect the precision fish farming that we are pushing into the helping farmers success at the moment.
Right, that's amazing. It's literally a camera that can tell what fish is in the pond and what is a theater versus the one that actually should be farmed. It's pretty mind-blowing. But so besides optimizing value chains that's critical, stabilizing for prices, there's also a lot of more risks that we're going to face and disasters, like natural disasters. So turning to you, Brian, tell us a little bit more. We know that there's 800 million people today that rely on remittances sent by their families abroad for their livelihoods, which means that 11% of the global population actually lives off remittances. It's a huge opportunity, and Tulix is tackling that right on. So tell us a bit more about what you're seeing as the risks that the households you're serving are experiencing, how Tulix solves that, and how demand is shifting amidst the changing climatic conditions.
Yeah, definitely, sure. So, out of the 800 million recipients, 200 million of them are in Africa alone. So that paints a very clear picture of the demand for remittances in this continent. And one of the things that's been lacking is the instantaneous and direct kind of remittance. We refer to it internally as a for-purpose remittance. So basically, if you're a migrant abroad and you have friends and family back home, you want to be able to respond immediately to a need, especially an emergency need. And these types of needs range from hospital bills to school fees to other types of forms. So our app enables that instantaneous transaction from wherever in the world you are to the end recipient, which is the business in most instances. And that instantaneous nature is more valuable to the benefactor who's sending this money because they now have a clear line of sight and they can fully appreciate the impact of the money they're sending back home. And that ability to react is also hand in hand with building a sort of a culture and a framework for financial inclusion for their beneficiaries. So there's a second element of Tulix which involves around ring fencing of payments, whereby you can have your beneficiaries on the app and allocate specific funds for them to make transactions at approved margins. So in this regard, I will be a beneficiary here in Kenya and rely on a benefactor to fund very specific needs. And I'll actually speak to the two businesses around TopUp Mama and Aquarech.
Yeah.
Some of the remittance beneficiaries actually spend money to run their small businesses and even just buy supplies for their existing entrepreneurships or existing products that they're solving. So a good use case would be Tulix would be able to kind of ring-fence payments directly to TopUp Mama or directly to the fish farmers, whereby supplies will be gotten at the end recipient, and that reaction is instant. It's not a conversation that takes 2, 3, 4 days, and of course the opportunity is lost to react when that opportunity exists.
Which is a huge issue usually in remittances, right, or international money transfers.
Yes.
So when you say instant, how long would it take, say, you're in the UK, I'm here, or to receive a payment?
So right now, when you try and make a payment from anywhere UK, US, it's roughly 5 seconds to complete the payments and get a confirmation. Yeah, so it's that fast.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think there's also a bigger problem we're also looking at, where despite remittances being associated with individual to individual, there are a lot of groups and a lot of organizations that actually do one form of remittances, which is supporting people at risk, people who are facing situations like drought and climate and farming. And a good way that we're tackling this is we are building a B2B product that has that already solution built in for them. So you could imagine humanitarian organizations that in Kenya there's a group known as the Cash Working Group, and they roughly support 800,000 people in Kenya alone. So for them, cash programs are a lifesaver in very dire situations because of how fast they need to react. And with Tulix, we give them that added visibility. They're able to see, are their programs working, are the needs that they're trying to meet being met, and are the beneficiaries actually kind of being alleviated from whatever situations they're in. So we're very excited about those kind of partnerships and those kind of products that we're pursuing. And it feeds into all the other businesses that are around everything that these beneficiaries are interacting with, or even what the benefactors are trying to sponsor back home.
Right. And what are you hearing from your clients abroad? So are they concerned about increased demand for remittances because, for example, there's going to be more droughts in the future and other such things?
So there is, I wouldn't say it's an obvious climate awareness or an obvious climate challenge that they're tackling, but I would appreciate the fact that it's related to so many of the things that they're trying to cater to. So we talked about food security and just the rise in food costs. That translates immediately to you need to send more money. So if you were spending 1,000 shillings on groceries last week, this week it's 1,300. And in order to react to that, the benefactors are the ones catering to this need.
Right.
So they're becoming more and more aware that they need to be able to provide and cater to these emerging needs and emerging risks facing their own families and households.
So it's slowly building awareness, actually.
Correct,
It's
yes.
not fully there yet, but
It's important to build it in,
okay.
yeah, correct.
That's great. One question for all of you, we can answer in whatever order. So clearly there's a role for financial services to smooth income and build resilience overall. So how are you thinking about the role that fintech can play in that resilience building across your products that are not necessarily financial service first, but where it's an embedded, except for you, Brian, but where it's an embedded product in the service?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think for our case in the aquaculture sector, we are dealing with some areas that are complicated and some areas that are complex. And so you have to be very strategic in your approach by thinking more from a circular perspective, by looking at the entire value chain and how certain things are going to plug into our technology, and how our technology is also going to lead to certain outcomes, whether intended or unintended. So in terms of that, we work with a lot of collaboration and partnership, especially in areas that we expressly are not involved in directly, but we have access to strategic partners who can be able to, fill in those, because ultimately, if one part of the system is not working as it should, it's going to affect us. And this for us includes even issues to do with championing policies that would enable sustainable use of resources under the blue economy, like large water bodies like Lake Victoria, where we operate in. How can we work with the government to ensure those kinds of systems and structures are in place that will give us easy operations. Yeah.
But Dave, are you working in partnership with financial institutions, or you're offering actually credit to farmers yourself?
So we are currently fundraising on that, and the idea will be to work directly with the farmers through a contractual farming arrangement in order to offer the credit financing. Right now, it's largely what Aquarech has been able to offer in terms of credit limit to the smallholder farmers. But we are keen to bring in the financial institution so that they fit into our credit financing scheme.
That's awesome. And Emilie, like similarly, like how do you see the credit you offer as enabling that sort of stabilization, right, and resilience of the businesses?
So let me first explain. A restaurant to cash cycle is usually like a 24-hour cycle for most of our customers. So in the evening, they close the restaurant, they count the cash that they have, they look at what products they have left, and then make a list, what do I need for tomorrow? What can I actually afford? So then the next morning, they go to buy the products, but they're limited by the cash of what they've earned the day before. So they buy the products, process it, sell it, and then whatever they have left that evening is input for the next day. So you see that they're bound to only buy what the cash is that they got from today's sales.
Right.
And so what we're seeing with our TopUp Now, Pay Later product is not just that our customers are buying more products, so our revenue from customers on these Pay Later products is higher, they're also buying more high margin products, so more relatively expensive and luxurious products that they can also sell for higher margins.
What's an example of a high margin product?
So it's beef, boneless beef instead of just beans, for example. And of course, those products they can sell for more to their customers. Anybody of you who has ever eaten at a vibanda will probably know that if you get there anytime after 1:30 or 2, the chance of them being sold out on beef is very, very high. So you get there and you know that the restaurant owner has decided, I'm not going to stock up on too much of this beef because it's too much of a risk. I either don't have the cash to buy it, so I can't sell it, or I want to be sure of at least a sort of more stable income. And so they can sort of take that leap of increasing their margins and their profit for the day because they just simply don't have the cash to put in upfront. So with
The cash constraints are real. Yeah.
the cash constraints are very real. And so with our TopUp Now, Pay Later product, they're actually able to buy more of this, increase their profits. And if food prices do increase, they're not limited by what they sold the day before. They can actually buy more of that right now and sell that throughout the day and pay us back later.
Right. And probably predict their supply better and optimize that like week on week versus having to do that like on a day to the next fashion.
I mean, yeah,
To some extent.
in terms of what they can keep in stock, and especially if they don't have fridges, they can't really buy more for multiple days up front, but they can at least buy the things that they expect to sell, or even take a little bit of a leap of faith that they can sell more, and just help like be in a positive spiral of margins instead of like a negative downward spiral.
Yeah, critical. But credit also it's only one side of the equation, right? So even beyond credit or payments, like digital payments in a remittances context, what is your ambition, Brian, in terms of looking holistically at the financial needs of the families that benefit from the remittances?
Thank you, that's a great question. One decision we took as Tulix was to basically not reinvent remittances, but add value to the existing channels that exist. Because on the one end, where the senders are based, the rails are pretty fantastic. Everything works, money can arrive in Kenya. But
Kenya.
Yeah, once it gets to Kenya, it gets a bit complicated, it goes through several channels. And we positioned ourselves as a digital wallet intentionally, because in that manner, you can now kind of study and understand the transactional data for additional value down the line. And a great use case is we have been getting a lot of questions and comments in terms of, I have this need that I keep funding every month, I keep paying for some healthcare bills, for example. Are there certain insurance products that we can embed that will cater to this regular need, and then they can just offset it on the app without having to send the money. And that's one of the ways that we would be thinking about the evolution of Tulix, is that the needs go beyond the emergency payment. They go beyond that instantaneous transaction. You want to now start use that data to understand your customers better, to realize what their actual full intentions will be from the funds they're sending. And that's actually working really great for us, because the beauty is that people are already building the product they're asking for. They just don't have a convenient or direct way of accessing these products. And Tulix is definitely going to be a good distribution platform for some of these embedded finance products that they need already. Yeah.
Absolutely. And data, as we're saying, it's key, right? Like whether that's information and very, very accurate data on fish production, or the volumes of stock week on week that a small restaurant has as the need of, or whether that's the amount of remittances and payments received week on week as well. That is what is going to inform then the building of new services on top of that, right? And sort of understanding what other needs are there to be a bit more holistic. That's awesome. So I want to make sure we have time for questions, but before doing that, I think Dave, you were talking earlier about the role that other players in the ecosystem need to have, and especially policymakers. So a question for all of you is, what do you think needs to happen for policymakers to actually understand what's happening at the micro level from a climate change perspective, and act with the private sector, with players like yourselves, to enable innovation to happen faster?
Thank you very much. Policies are a very integral part of growth of an industry in any part of an economy. And normally the thing is that the private sector is always ahead of the policymakers. And they go into the sector, do a lot of things, then the policymakers come in to understand what is going on. And I think that might continue for a while. But it is for now once that has happened, and now you need to establish a more sustainable system that can work for all the players who are in that sector. Policies have to be put in place. And some of these policies are key because they will lead to infrastructure development. For example, if you look at the aquaculture sector, of course, we don't have policies at the moment, but there's an ongoing discussion on those. By having some structured discussion on policy with the policymakers, involving the key stakeholders and getting the right policies in place, tackling issues to do with climate change will be in a more structured and organized way. And so you will find even the investment that is geared towards setting up those infrastructure will be very clear, and there will be more investment in that sector because the investors then have confidence in what they are investing in. And also the players that are involved in operating, in this case, large-scale farmers, medium-sized farmers, and feed producers, cold chain manufacturers, and all these other players will be aligning themselves towards being environmentally sound and being consciously aware of the impact of climate in that sector. And those kind of support systems, whether physical infrastructure or non-physical infrastructure, are more anchored on how the policy is made and the policy that currently exists in that sector. So it's very key to have.
You can't solve it all yourself.
Yeah, you can't solve it all by yourself.
Yeah, so I think what needs to be seen is that like the effects on people are real, right? The example I mentioned is food prices, and the hashtag going around lower food prices. It's a real thing, and you need something to like, work on the cause of that, which I think they talked about. But also, you just like problems need to be solved today, right? People cannot afford food that is 30% more expensive than yesterday, and so those are some immediate things that also need to be solved.
The urgency aspect of this, it's mind-boggling.
And I think just to build on what David and Emilie said, a great actually opportunity is just look at what the big players are able to do, because I mean, private sector does inform policy in every continent or in every country. And as startup founders, that's an opportunity for us to now inform the private sector even more and continue adding value, giving them information where they don't, and helping that feed into the actual decision makers at the policy level to react better, to create better systems for us and the generation to follow, and just to make the ecosystem thrive even more.
Totally, and that's why we need a lot more innovators like yourselves out there solving these problems. So to conclude, and then we'll open to question, what would be, if you were to say to other, I'm sure many entrepreneurs are sitting here today, your advice when it comes to thinking about building resilient solutions? Do that Twitter style, 60 characters.
So I think I would say there's a real felt effect by your customers, and they might not link it to climate change. It might just be one on a long list of problems that they have. So start with what that real impact is on them and what that real challenge is, and work backwards from there.
Awesome.
Nice, I'll just reply to the thread and say, once you figure out that small problem, find other ways that your customer is probably being affected, whether it's directly by your business or by other businesses, and look to work with those businesses as well to help them make better products.
Yeah, for every action that you as an entrepreneur you take to introduce a product or a service in a business space, there's a reaction, whether intended or unintended, that comes as a result of it. So you must look at your business from a circularity perspective and work with the stakeholders that are either directly or indirectly accessing your products or services or benefiting from them. Thanks.
Beautiful thread. I hope you're all sharing. All right, so any questions from the audience? I'm kind of half blind, so if you have one, yeah, okay, there you go. Step up.
I have a question for the gentleman who works with fish. Sorry, I forgot Aquarech. Where exactly are you targeting in Kenya?
So what fish farm, like where in Kenya are you targeting fish farmers?
It's Aquarech, not Aquatech.
Sorry.
It's okay. We are working with fish farmers across the country, largely based in the Western Kenya, Lake Victoria. The farthest we have gone right now is a county called Kirinyaga in the Mount Kenya region. So we are across the country, but with large presence in Western region. We work with both cage fish farmers and pond fish farmers.
Thank you. Anyone else? We left them speechless, guys. It's too good. All right, well, I'm sure we can all continue the conversations throughout the day and tonight. I hear there's another happy hour happening. I don't know if I can survive another, but maybe you can catch us all there and we can keep discussing. So thank you all. Thank you to you guys for sharing your stories.